I know a lot of people have opinions about the AXEFX 3 and some things I agree with and some things I don't agree with, but what I wanted to do today is just talk to you about how I use my AXEFX 3 and why I decided to buy an AXEFX 3. And hopefully through this explanation and demo, I can answer some of your questions and help you decide whether you might want to buy an AXEFX 3 in 2021. Hey guys, what's up? My name is Taylor and I do all sorts of guitar related stuff like this. On my channel. If that's something you enjoy, make sure to hit the like button and consider subscribing while you're here. So today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be talking about this guy, my AXEFX 3. It's one of the pieces of gear that I get the most questions about, and for good reason. As far as guitar gear goes, it's a pretty big investment. It's a really powerful piece of gear that is capable of doing a lot, and I think when people are interested in the AXEFX 3 and asking me questions, you know, they just want to make sure that they're getting their money's worth. So hopefully in today's video I can help you by showing you my rig and how I use the AXEFX 3 and some of the things that it's capable of. But in order to do that, I'm going to need to plug in a guitar. Let's go grab one. What's up guys, I'm here plugged into my main rig, which is built around an AXEFX 3. And what I wanted to do today was just talk about some of the reasons that I really enjoy using an AXEFX 3, some ways that it's made my life easier, and some things you might want to consider if you're looking at getting one. Okay, so to start off, I'm just gonna go through each one of the different components here in my rack, talk to you about what they do and how they tie into the AXEFX. And then we'll look at the AXEFX specifically, and I'll go over my main rhythm tone with you. And we can even talk about some of these pedals that I have hooked up to it and why I have those. So the first thing I have going on here is I have a pull-out rack drawer, and this houses the 𝗖𝗛𝗡 LP16 here, which is used to play backing tracks. The primary reason for me building a rig like this, and the reason that I went to the AXEFX 3, it has the processing power and the routing options to not only be able to process the guitar that I'm playing, but also to process a backing guitar and backing bass that's being played out of the 𝗖𝗛𝗡 LP16. So this is a really cool unit. I have a video on this on my channel, but basically the way this works is you load up your backing tracks onto this little disc here, and then on the back there's 16 mono outputs that you can pretty much route however you want. So the way that we have this set up is we are sending a click and a processed rhythm guitar to the drummer out of 2 of the channels. Then there is the backing track of the other guitar, DI, being routed from this into the AXEFX 3 and into a power amp and then into a cabinet. There's the bass DI that is being sent out of this into the AXEFX 3 into another power amp and another cabinet. And then there's stereo samples, so 1 channel for left samples and 1 channel for right samples. And then there's just a lot of open channels that we don't really use. But you know, if you're in a one-man symphonic black metal band, this is probably something you want to look into getting. So after the signal is ran from the 𝗖𝗛𝗡 LP16 into the AXEFX processed, it is ran back into this power amp, which is just specifically for the bass cabinet. Down here I have the AXEFX 3, which is the main brain of the unit. We'll come back to that. The guitar that I'm playing is going wirelessly into this, and then this is running into the AXEFX 3. I have a Seymour Duncan Power Stage 700 down here, and one of the reasons that I picked this up and that I really like it is not only is it really lightweight and it has a ton of power, but it's also stereo, so I can run one guitar through one side of it and the other guitar through the other side, and it powers 2 4x12 cabinets, no problem. And then down here at the very bottom, I have a patch bay, so it is easier to route things out of this whole unit rather than having to reach around and plug them into the back of the LP16. And they're all labeled with nice little tape label things. Now, I highly recommend editing patches with the AXEFX 3 edit software. It is much easier than spinning this knob and using the dials on the front of it, but it can still be done that way. So I'm gonna go in here to the AXEFX 3 and show you how everything is being routed real quick. We're gonna go layout and then zoom. So here's the grid for my main preset. The first thing I have going on here is I have a gate, and it's just a classic gate. I also use the gate on the input, but this gate is just to catch any spillover that happens. That way I get a really tight control on my tone. Here, I'll give you an example. Personally, I find that I have more success when I use 2 gates and I set the first one to cut out most of the noise and then set the second one to catch whatever the first one misses. And in my experience, using that technique helps just so that I don't have a gate that is like cutting off any notes that I'm trying to sustain. So if you're using one gate and you notice that it cuts off your notes too quickly, you might want to try using 2 gates and setting it up that way. The next block I have in my chain is I have a wah, and then I have a phaser, I have a drive, and these 3 blocks get engaged when I use my solo scene. One of the really cool things that I like in the AXEFX 3 is it has an auto engage feature. So I have a spring-loaded mission control pedal down here, and I have it set to auto engage my wah. So when I'm not touching the pedal at all, my wah turns off, but as soon as I step on the pedal, the wah block turns on. Pretty neat. The thing that I really like about these spring-loaded mission control pedals and the way it engages with the AXEFX 3 is I don't have to step down on a switch to turn the wah on and off. It's pretty much just set up to go, and if I want a wah, I just start using my wah pedal. You get the idea. And then I have a pitch shifter, and I have that set up to drop my guitar a full octave, you know, when you want to be extra heavy. The next thing I have is the amp block. I'm using the Fryette D60 More patch. Here are the settings. I'm also boosting it with a grinder pedal inside of the amp block. Next, I have a parametric EQ, which I don't really use all that often. I also have a multi-band compressor, which I don't really use that often unless I am running this directly into an interface and using an IR. I just find that it's kind of helpful to have those things if you're running directly into an interface, or if I'm gonna be setting up to use this to like front of house or something like that. But 9 times out of 10, and especially because of quarantine and the lockdowns, I'm just running through a cabinet, so I don't use those things. Then I have a flanger, a delay, and a reverb block. And that's the signal chain for my guitar that I play. Now let's go to the signal chain for the backing guitar. This chain is much simpler. I just use the gate that is built into the input block. Then I have an amp block here set to the 𝗬𝗢𝗨'𝗚, and that is being boosted with a grinder also. And then I have some reverb at the end of that chain. And then the last signal chain that I have set up here is for the bass that comes from the Cymatic Audio LP16. And really all it is a drive block. And in the drive block, I'm using the Black Glass 7K, which is based off a dark glass product. And then at the end here, I have the signal chain split left and right. The right signal is being processed with a cab IR, and that is going to my patch bay over here. So if I want to, I can run that into a PA or wherever you run things that accept signals. And even with all these effects blocks, I'm hovering at about 67.5% CPU usage. So if I put cab IRs on both guitars and did the same signal processing left and right with the cab IR, I would probably be around 80 to 85%, which is getting a little bit too high for my comfort level, but it can be done. And that is the main reason that I use the AXEFX, is because of its versatility, its signal flow, and its processing power. I mean, it's kind of crazy how much stuff you can process with this thing. Now, another thing that I want to mention here is normally I run MIDI out of the Cymatic Audio LP16 into the AXEFX 3, and that also handles all my scene changes for me. Now, I haven't really been doing that because we haven't played live in almost a year now, but it's really, really convenient when you're playing live to not have to worry about getting across the stage and hitting a pedal during a certain part in the song, and if you don't, you mess up the whole thing. Now, for my band practice, what I do is I have this Mellow Audio MIDI commander down here, and I have kind of mixed feelings about this thing. You can't program this to change the AXEFX in the exact ways that I would want to, but you can work around it. Essentially, with the MIDI commander, the A, B, C, and D buttons will switch in between different presets, not different scenes, but different presets. So, you know, you can toggle back and forth in between 4 different presets. And then in the AXEFX 3, you can assign buttons 1, 2, 3, and 4 to kind of do whatever you need them to do. And there's no way to program the bank up and down keys. The bank up and down keys just switch in between your presets. And another thing that I don't like about the Mellow Audio MIDI controller is it eats up batteries really quick. Like, I pretty much have to change batteries after one practice. So with all that said, it kind of works. And if you're looking for something to switch your AXEFX on the cheap and you can work around those limitations, then you might want to check one out. So basically here, I have this set up to go to my lead channel. And then do a channel with a lot of reverb on it. I know, it's a ridiculous amount of reverb. And those are pretty much the only 3 patches that I ever use when we're playing around anyways. Now that I've explained all of this, let me show you how it works. Basically, you just select the song that you want to play on here and you press play. Okay guys, so to recap, the reason that I went with the AXEFX 3 is not only does it produce amazing tones and let you sculpt any guitar tone pretty much that you can imagine, but it also has enough processing power to process 2 guitars and a bass. And if I trim the fat in my signal chain, I could probably even throw some vocal processing in there as well. The flexibility in the routing and being able to use it with different foot controllers and MIDI just really make it a dream to use, and it really let me automate a lot of the complications involved in being the only guitar player in my band, but still wanting to have a backing track of that second guitar and a bass. Alright guys, hopefully you found this video helpful. If you have any questions about my AXEFX 3 or the way that I'm using it in my rig, definitely let me know down in the comments below and I will try to answer all of your questions. Hopefully by giving you examples of how I use it and going over the details of my rig, I've sort of helped you identify what it's capable of and some reasons that you may or may not want to purchase it. As always, if you like this video, make sure to hit the like button, consider subscribing, and I'll see you next time.